to add the different columns together. But we're really flexible. If you have a suggestion of a column you'd like to see or data you'd like to see or a combined ratio of two columns that currently isn't on Power Options, send us an email or give us a call and we'll try to implement that into the strategy and into the results table for you. The other reason when we don't have a direct export to Excel is because in the early days, before I was here, there were some security issues where people were stealing certain sets of search results, putting them into an Excel spreadsheet, and then reselling them as their own data. So that's some of the reasons why we don't have Excel. If you have an idea of a data column you'd like to see, Greg, that you use in your Excel spreadsheet, or if there's a couple columns you'd like to see that you use for a ratio that you would like to see on Power Options, just send us an email, and we'll see if we can implement that for you. In the past, Greg, I have heard of customers, for example, let's see here, what you might be able to do. Some customers have been able to just to copy and paste certain rows here from the Smart Search results and then paste it into Excel. I think you might have more luck trying to copy and paste the columns here, perhaps in the printer-friendly version of your results, that you have more of there to import them into the columns. So that's just, there isn't a direct one, a direct import-export in the portfolio or from the main search results. But there are some ways around it that you might be able to locate, and you might, you might be able to use that printer-friendly version to do that more effectively as well. Okay, let's see here. While we're on this page, and I had cleared out all the settings, and we looked up just the stocks that paid a dividend and how to manipulate it just to look at other values as well. There's been a lot of talk recently, and there's been a lot of discussion recently, of course, on the weekly options. They started having weekly options on stocks back in June, I think it was, end of May, beginning of June. So now the expiration date is every 7 days. If you're looking for, in this case, we're in the covered call screen, if I'm looking for covered call opportunities on the weekly options, well, I'd start off the same way we did before. We'll scroll down to the bottom of the screen, remember, and we'll click Clear These Settings. We'll empty out all of the filters. We'll scroll back up to the top. Let's just go to percent return if assigned here rather than the percent yield. Let's change how we're sorting our results. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to leave it in December, but instead of seeing the regular monthly options for December, if I just want to see the weeklies, I'm going to put in my days to expiration to be between 0 and 8. I suppose I could put in 7, but I'll just put in 0 to 8. And then I can put in my other criteria as well. I want to make sure, now you have to take some things with a grain of salt. If you usually expect on an average basis to make, let's say, 2 to 2.5% on your standard covered call positions using the regular monthly options, you have to narrow your expectations down by maybe a factor of a third or a fourth if you're trading the weekly options. Now, your annualized return, if you're able to go week by week by week, your annualized return for those call selling is going to be higher than by going month by month by month, of course. But the static return, I'm not going to search for a position that has a 5% downside protection and a 3% return if assigned for the weekly options. I could find positions that have that's probably on the ultra short or the 3 times bear or the 3 times bull ETFs that offer weekly options. So let's just try something. Let's look for a minimum percent if assigned of 0.5%. Minimum downside protection of the same, 0.5%. Net credits, or I'm sorry, let's see here. Where's my option premium? Oh, that's interesting. Option bid price, I apologize. I'm going to put something basic in there, at least 25 cents. And that's just to make sure that if there is something out there that has 25 cents, that'll cover my commissions, depending on how many shares I was going to do. Now, I'm not going to put in any other stock criteria, and the reason why is as much conversation as there has been recently on the weekly options and using the weekly options for these different strategies. I want everyone to keep in mind that as of last count, where's my list? I believe there is a total of about 32, 33 indexes, ETFs, and stocks that have weekly options. The new stocks that have weekly options, I think there's only 17. So there's a low number of stocks that offer the weekly options. So I don't need to put in a lot of things for the stock price, earnings per share growth, price per earnings, fundamental and technical criteria. So I'm already dealing with a limited universe of options anyway. All right, so let's go ahead and click Submit these settings. Now I'm going to have possibly more than 35 results because there's about 56 results. I said there's only 34 indexes, ETFs, and stocks that have weekly options, but I have some duplicates here, don't I? Here's the December 42 strike on VXX, and then I also have the 44 and the 45. Those matched my basic criteria. Let's see here. Greg asked another question. Can search results be changed to allow display of results either ascending or descending? Yes. Earlier we had changed the sorting results from percent if assigned to percent yield. Underneath the day's expiration, you have two fields here in all the smart searches. It's just two simple radio buttons where you can select to view the order of your results from highest to lowest or lowest to highest. In this case, we sorted our results by percent return if assigned. So I scroll back up. We see we start off with a 10% potential return on the VXX, the deep out of the money 45 call, which is selling for 40 cents premium. Now if I change my order, I'll just click the radio button there to order results lowest to highest and hit submit. I still have the same 56 results as we had before. We're showing the first 20 of 56 results, but now I'm sorting by the lowest return if assigned to highest. Now, what I also probably changed is the probability. I probably flipped the probability, so I expect to see higher probabilities of assignment now, 83%, 62.4%, and so on. So whatever criteria you select, Greg, to sort the results table by from that drop-down menu, you can choose using those simple radio buttons to, if you want to order them from highest to lowest, or rather if you wanted to order them from lowest to highest. Now, one thing that I always want to mention, if you decide to run a search in a, let's say, an income-generating strategy, covered calls, naked puts, bear call credits, bull put credits, for example, even the debit spreads, if you're comparing both weekly and the regular third Friday expiration series, what you're going to want to do, in any strategy you're in, if I'm in covered calls, for example, in addition to looking at the static percent if assigned, I'm also probably going to want to look at the percent if assigned annual, because that's more of a comparison of apples to apples, for example. It's going to be hard for me to compare the static return of an option that expires in 7 days versus one that expires in 3 weeks, or in this case in 15 days for the December series. So you always want to use the annualized return when you're comparing the weekly options to the monthlies, or if you're comparing the different monthly options. If you're looking for a search, for example, on a strategy, an income strategy, such as covered calls, if I'm looking at a range of expiration between 0 and 90 days, so I'd look at the current month, the next month out, and 3 months out in time, I want to use the percent if assigned annualized return and the percent downside protection annualized, even maybe the percent if unchanged annualized return, so I'm actually having a more fair comparison between the positions. So that's just, you remember, anything that you can basically sort by and filter by down in the search tool, you can choose to view by selecting those values in the see more or less columns. Okay. So again, this is just our search results for those weekly options. We can change the sorting again. Now, what I want to do is let's just look at a quick list of the stocks that have a weekly option. Now, to do that, we're going to start off where we had. We're going to look at our time frame of 0 to 8 days. I'm going to remove all of these stock filters, or all these option filters. Again, the minimum percent return if assigned, minimum downside protection. I'm just going to put in number of strikes, limit it from 1 to 1. Now, if I just wanted to see stocks, what I'll do, because there are indexes, ETFs, for example, that have weeklies, down at the bottom where I can select to view specific stock lists, such as the IBD 100, CanSlim list, or indexes, ETFs, and holders, what I'm going to do is leave it at no list, so I'm screening across the universe of options. But in my remove stock list fields, the one at the bottom, I'm going to select to remove indexes, ETFs, and holders. And I used the strike of 1 to 1, just so I only get one strike for each stock that has a weekly option. Let's just go ahead and run that search. Might have changed, but let's see. No, VXX still came up as an ETN, not an ETF. That's why it's there. Okay, so now I'm showing there are some duplicates here. Oh, that series is still in. That last series doesn't expire until the Friday option series today. Technically, it doesn't expire until 10 p.m. tonight. So let me just change that and go 1 to 8. There we go. All right, so here's a list of our basically, it looks like 20 stocks minus the ETN, so that would be 19. Potash, Apple, Google, Intel, GE, General Motors, BP, Ford, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, Priceline, Bank of America, IBM, Amazon, Las Vegas Sands, Microsoft, Netflix, RIM, and Cisco Systems. I think that I do have a new one in here that I was not aware of, and I think it's GM. I'm just going to compare it quickly to my old list that I ran the other day. I bet you, yep, I think that's it. I think GM is a new series. I want to check that on the option chain very quickly. So for my search results, I'm going to go to the option chain for GM. And that's interesting, isn't it? On the chain, it's showing me the different symbols, but as we saw with some of the other weekly stocks, for example, let's go back to Apple. No, let's not use Apple. Let's go to Intel, INTC. Right? Let's see. Let's go ahead and submit that. So the options that it technically expire today, but will get fulfilled in the next few hours, those one-day series are still there for Intel, and the 7-day series are as well. But for GM, all right, it looks like this doesn't have a series for today. It's not that they've already expired. It didn't exist. So yesterday was the first time that weekly options were included for GM, and there's the first series. So that's kind of interesting. So we have a new stock now with weekly options, and it is General Motors. All right, let's see here. This is Greg again. Greg, let's see. What is... No, that's why. Okay, I was mixing it with another question. I apologize, Greg. Now I see your question. Can you search by specific strike prices instead of range in or out of the money or number of strikes? For example, I'm looking at calendar calls, and I want my long call to be between 15 and 20. Can I enter that specific range without having to calculate percents in or out of the money? I don't think so. Let me go. Okay, let me go back to the covered call screen, Greg, and I just want to check something here. I remember something a while ago. Maybe it wasn't in this search. Maybe it was in one of the other ones. But I thought there was a strike price screen either here or maybe in naked puts, for example. But I'm almost positive in the calendar spreads. Oh, don't have it available there. Let me go into calendar spreads. Clear.